For those who are awake and for those of us who attended to keep hold and maintain the fight against terror, some of you are going to come here today and think, oh, it was a bit too cold today, or you guys are not the one. Our job as the awakened is to say, look, it might be a cold, little missus here doing her bit as well. It might be a little bit cold, it might be a little bit frustrating, the numbers are not there, it's not as big as a skeptical, but then on the flip side, 6 months down the line, as the theory goes, you might be being mandatory vaccinated, you might be being dragged out your house, your kids might be being taken away from you. This might be happening, so think of that when we're saying to ourselves we might not want to be here next week or the week after. That's what's in store for us, potentially. Brilliant, is that someone else? Lovely jubbly. Police, if we manage to come up to the police, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Let's try and get what we're doing. If the police come up, we'll talk to them. If they start getting heavy-handed, guys, there's only a few of us here. What we're going to do with the police, we're not going to fight them. We're not going to be able to get them to go away. We've done our jobs. Let's get it out there. Let's get to as much people as we can. Let's film it. Let's let people know that we're doing something different. And if the police are really not having it, then it's just save it. Head on home, and we're just going to have to do it for another day. You know, there's kids here. We want it to be child friendly also. We don't want any type of madness. Future, we want this to be consecutively each week, you know, so again, this is just a skeptical to let people know what we're doing. People will see it, oh, I want to get on board next week. We compound the numbers, we get more people doing it. The aim is to get round the whole of Manchester at some point. You can't go to a company, you can't go to a school, you can't go to extracurricular activities, you can't go to the gym, you can't go anywhere, no matter where you go. They don't just say turn up and this is what we're doing. There's some type of structure to it. So we are trying to fight for freedom. There has to be some type of structure to it also. We can't just be turning up being like, right, yeah, we're going to turn up and expect that we're going to get our freedoms. Boris is going to listen to us. He's seen all our live feeds. That's great. He hears that we're in trouble and we hate all this. And now, there's your freedom, guys. Your life's better again. That's not going to happen. You know, it's not going to happen. It has to be organised, it has to be structured, and there has to be a plan of action. I've got some of the plan. I don't have it all. And I'm hoping you guys can chime into it. And just thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming. So what we're going to do is, there's an estate over here, you know. We're just going to go, if we see anyone, talk to them, you know. Again, be cordial. They might not want to speak to us. Okay, safe. Posting letterboxes. It's generally just speaking to people, guys. That's what it is. Speaking to people and being human. Just be human. Just be compassionate. Show love. And just let them know that people are trying to kill us. But just be clever about how you go about giving that message.
So Rio, why Miles Platting, why around here?
Because one, to start off in town, the idea, I said Piccadilly Gardens.
Yeah.
And what's closest to Piccadilly Gardens, the closest inner city area, was this. So eventually we're going to do it all over Manchester, you know. Here was just convenient because it's that town and it's the nearest, you know, it's the nearest thing to basically where we normally do it. So there was no particular reason why Miles Platting, you know, we're just going to be doing it all in the city areas because this is where the people are at, you know. And if we can imagine the 2,000, 3,000 people that have been in town, if you see them going through the area, it's a different type of what's going on there. You know, back in May, you know, we wanted to start a common law group. That only started out with 20 people. That group now has nearly 7,000 people. So this is how it starts. You know, you have to start somewhere and you have to get it going. People have to see people doing it. That's the main thing. People see people doing it and then you slowly build up the numbers. Unfortunately, that's how it works. So you're not always going to get 1 million people at the start. You just end up getting a few. But as I said, you know, that group is now at 7,000 and people are plugged in and people are aware of what's going on with their rights and duties. So, you know, that's where we're at. So as long as we can, you know, show that we're doing it, that's the main thing. Have to start using our social medias as they would use the TV, you know, because we don't have access to the TV. We don't. But we have access to social media. We have people. In fact, social media, take away the censorship, is a lot more powerful than the TV if we use it right. It's a lot more effective. So again, if we were organised, it allows us to be as effective as the media without the same type of resources. So that's what it is. Good afternoon, a major part of this is reframing the narrative and reframing people's minds on how to, oh there you are, on how to campaign and protest. Because, like I said, we've all got a way of thinking. We've all got a way of thinking and it needs to be done a little bit differently to get to another demographic. Hey, sorry, we went that way thinking you guys have gone that way.
If we can go into like small town centre hubs where they've got like quality service somewhere, because coming up to Christmas, there's going to be loads of people going in and out and we can stick together and talk.
Okay.
So, like Prestwich has got a fountain with a Costa and a quality save and a whatever, and everybody's constantly coming and going, but it's small and it's local. So if we can bombard you with places and ideas, go from there.
Well, this is what it's about also. It's about us coming together because I just start the idea and then you get brilliant people who have better ideas who are able to shape the way in which it goes. This is what it's about. This is what grassroots about. So you're not seeing it behind closed doors. You're seeing a real life version of how it's going to be shaped from there. So I agree. It makes perfect sense. And, you know, because what I don't like to do is start something, and because I don't know all the ways to do it proper, I don't like to not just get it started. So it's good to get it started, and then you meet people like Michaela who are able to point you in the right direction, because there's no iron team, and you know, people have better ideas than you. So great idea, Michaela, great idea. Paper. So again, as I was just saying to Michaela, who, you know, she gave us some more ideas of how we can progress it. This is how I perceive it to be. When we all come together with better ideas, we can all make a situation better. So go back to the common law group now. There's 7,000 people, between 15 admins, and it's a well-oiled machine. But you have to start somewhere. You know, we have to start somewhere. We can't start on the basis that if there's not 1 million people, I'm not turning up, because nothing would ever get done. The beauty about the timing of this is that tomorrow we will be there handing out leaflets, and we will be there letting people know that there's also another alternative platform to be able to campaign and protest. So it's brilliant that we've got the big one tomorrow. So hopefully you guys will be there. Oh! And what's your guys like entry points to why you guys feel that something needs to be done?
The way it started for me was I am a victim of vaccines.
Ah, okay. Okay.
I got diagnosed with something 17 years ago, flu vaccine.
Yep.
Struggling with it ever since.
Right, okay.
So that got me from this.
Right, okay. So is that something you still...
Yeah? Still ongoing, yeah. I was giving chemo for it, I was giving so many other drugs.
Jeez.
And now I'm totally clear. All medication.
Oh, right, okay. And how long ago was that?
That was when I got diagnosed when I was 17.
Jeez. And you've suffered with it since?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I take it there was no compensation, there was...
No, you've got a 5-year window to claim and average... One second, teacher. And the average diagnosis date.
Have a nice day.
You too.
The average diagnosis time is 7 years. So you miss them. Everybody is so many people.
What? So you're like real life, the embodiment of what we're talking about. Yeah.
Hence the reason why I won't let people stick things in your children and so on.
Yeah, makes sense. It might be something you want, you might not. I know the television's giving us a version of events. We just have another version of events of of what it's about and the lockdowns and stuff like that. There's a 99.9% survival rate, and we're just wondering why they've locked down the whole world because of that, when there's people suffering from stuff that happens, Do you get what I mean? So, quick question, you don't have to answer this. What are your thoughts and views on the whole lockdown? Is it something that needed to happen? Not? Yeah. Is it left it too late? Left it too late? Yeah. What do you mean by left it too late?
It was coming from last December, November, and that lunatic decided to lock it all down in March for 3 months.
Yeah.
What's the point then? It's already got it.
You alright, miss? So what, you think it's run its course now, it's over, or do you think it's still necessary?
This vaccine's going to sort everything out, I hope.
That's why we've got another view on it. We've got another view on it, but we thought we'd get your view on it anyway.
No worries,
Appreciate you guys. Enjoy
the best
of the conversation. I've been on the other side. Practically everyone who's awake. So I've not really had conversations like that, but again, it was a sensible conversation. It wasn't shouty. You need to take off your mask. He said that he feels the vaccine's gonna come and help us out. Okay, if that's your opinion. I'm not here to argue with that, but there's some information for you to look at that, might alter that belief. It's just another way of thinking, and that's generally what we're offering.
Mostly about the testing, we heard about all the false positives.
That's what this is.
I'm not daft.
No, yeah, of course.
Every day. Radio 5 every day, all day, because I drive.
I just think they're proper drilling it into our red sphere.
Oh yeah, right, it's already more died of the Spanish flu. Yeah. I mean, nationally every year, the deaths are down this year than they was last year.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
And do you know what? Though, more people are dying through suicide.
Alright, see you tomorrow.
I agree with you, but there's a lot of theories, isn't there?
Yeah. But obviously this is just, we're trying to just get rid of that.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, congratulations.
Are you on Facebook?
Yeah.
There's a group there, you can scan that and you just add to the group.
Alright, then no problem, yeah. I will look at it, yeah, because...
It's a pill, innit? I mean, the thing with finding out totally different information that's going to change your perception, it ain't going to click overnight. That might click a month from now, a week from now, an hour from now. They may watch a programme, they may watch a news report, and then all of a sudden, something will click in their head that conversation they had, that they totally disagreed with a woman, that might seem more relevant now. And it's happened to me like that, totally, so many times, you know what I mean? It could be just one more negative story that then makes you want to look at it a bit more, and then you recoil back, don't you, to certain things that were said.
Sure that you're in the groove as well. Well, I appreciate you guys for coming, and again, this is what it's about, the grassroots. Don't watch numbers, because this camera was started off with in one person's mind, and then now everyone's got, millions of people have got Canon. So this is what it's about. It's about putting that spark in people's minds that there's another way of doing it differently. But don't worry, you'll be seeing more of us.
Do you want one?
Give me 5. On the side. Up above. Down below. Woo! You're too slow, man. You're too slow.
Yeah, we'll
Well,
see you tomorrow.
guys,
You can be in Manchester.
Yeah, I'll be here tomorrow.
Hopefully we'll
see you later, missus.
I think we need it,
Is that a
you know.
spider?
We need it from the Boris.
People other than posts, you know, and people don't really read extensive posts. I know I like to rabbit on, as you can tell. I like to rabbit on, so yeah, people don't really read that. So
Rio, can I ask you, how long have you been doing this?
how long have I been doing
Well, just activism.
activism?
Yeah.
Really and truly? I'm gonna say all my life. The reason why I'm gonna say all my life, because I've always been that kid in school who, I say all my life. I'm gonna say, because I've always been that kid in school who is questioning the teachers, questioning why we're doing certain things, trying to rally people together to say, no, we're not going down the corridor, like mischievously, but it's more against authority. So that's one aspect of it. Then if you're talking about what we're doing now, David Icke, the first book that I read when I was 18, and then after that it was like the world is upside down. You know, what they've told us is not correct. So from there, I've been active in my community from there. Started a football team because my background's football, and through football, because most of the rules of life I've learned through football, I wanted to impart them same rules, discipline, teamwork, authority, skills, you know, getting into a program and just getting the kids off the streets. So that's where it started from. And then that was when I was 21, 22. So since then, on and off, you know, I've been, well, I say on and off, for 10 years I was doing that. I worked in a school, stopped doing that, and then I picked it back up a couple of years back. Actually went to prison, you know, went to prison for actually doing it the wrong way round, telling kids to stay off the street and not do drugs, and then I went into selling drugs, bit backwards, innit, a bit like the world. So yeah, I went to prison for that, came back renewed, and you know, realised that my efforts are best placed by doing community work and
Too smart for that.
and speaking to the people. So that's it, galvanizing the people, the people's spirits. You just mentioned it before about, you know, how people are almost interacting with all these concepts. It's like, which one are they? You wear a mask but you're awake, you wear a mask but you're asleep, you don't wear a mask but you're asleep, you don't wear it, like there's a load of things going on. And what that says to me is that the spirit of people needs uplifting, you know, and we're able to see with the upliftment of people's spirit, we can kind of get a more of a gauge of, you all right guys, can I tempt you in that, just a little bit more information about the PCR tests and the lockdowns and things like that.
All right, cheers.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, you find it probably. What we need to do is really, as a population, we need to get back to what is classed as a shared truth. We haven't got a shared truth anymore, have we now? Because everyone's got their own version of a truth.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's how can you come together if there's so many elements of what we perceive as the truth? So a guy wearing a mask, for all the reasons he's wearing the mask, that's his version of the truth. The guy that wants to go on a protest telling you to not wear that mask, he's got his version of the truth. We're all human beings, and the very thing that's affecting both people is affecting both people, regardless of their interpretation of that truth. So it's like, how the hell do we get back to that shared trip? And that's where I'm at. Because I can see the differences.
That's you're right there, and that's probably the $1 million question, isn't it? That I found that out, that it's not. For instance, we've got a group, to touch on your point, we've got a group that we get together, we've been getting together for the last 2 months, almost every night, trying to come up with what I would call a blueprint for success.
Right.
You know, i.e. what can be the common rules, regulations and common purpose, not that common purpose, common purpose, as though to speak, and what we can all follow. You know, some are here for 5G, some are here for, you know, save our children, some are here for media manipulation, some are here for whatever you're here for. But how do we tie them all together? That's, as you said, that's like the $1 million question. Once we do that and we accept that this is it, why we're actually in this situation, then we move forward. I think how that's done without being disrespectful to, you know, even those who are awake, we're almost all followers in a sense. You know, I'm a follower, I consider myself a leader, but if someone's got a better plan or a better scenario for me to follow, hell yeah, I'm the best follower then. You know, I'll follow that plan to the letter. So it's no.
It shows how lost we are, though, doesn't it?
It does.
So we're trying to work it out.
It does.
And we're all prepared to give people a try, and, you know, go with this leader, go with that leader. For the most positive intentions. But ultimately, this is an individual thing, isn't it? This ain't a one leader's got the whole kind of let's just follow. We've all got to rise up as an individual. And then make that collective that is the leader itself, in a sense.
100%.
But it's like you say, it's how do you get there? It's the little fights, little ideas to try and work all that out, I guess. And then you've got a population of people that are just don't even want to see it. As well.
Well, that's a good point. And the question to that is, what is your, you know, people say, what's the aim, what's the goal, where are we going with this, what, you know, how are we trying to get some type of remedy, what are your aims and objectives? For me personally, primarily, whilst we're all here collectively, because there's a collective enemy as such, as though to speak, or collective opposition, for me, like you said, it's for yourself initially. You know, it goes back to being for yourself. Why is this? Because I feel oppressed. I feel like these guys are, you know, kind of against my own, you know, willing to express my own free will. We can all feel that. So it's primarily it's a selfish thing first. Like, you know, I want it. Then you'll go to, if you've got kids, I've got kids. Then you'll go to my mum, my dad, and then you work out to the community. You know, the community being those who feel the same as us. So in terms of, you know, how do we go about it and what's our remedy? Let's say everyone turns around the world in a year's time and says, well, I hear you, Rio. I hear you guys. Thank you for the information that you're giving, but I just want to take I want to take the test and I want to take the vaccines, and thank you. Like, what do you do then? My thing is, then I want to be able to live in a world with everybody else with my free will. I don't want to then have to do what they're doing just because they want to do it, because I don't want to do it. So, you know, whilst it is...
So what you're saying is now, I guess, the libertarians coming out in people that are awakening. In a sense, it's freedom of choice.
Freedom of choice, that's it. Freedom of choice. That's it. I think Michaela or somebody said that before. I'm pro-choice, you know, and that was another spin on. But she said she's not anti-vax. She said she's down for vaccine, which again is good, because there's almost a no, not for the vaccines. But if for instance, if us three here were saying no, you can't have the vaccine, then that lady that was willing to come out and fight with us, we would have already outlawed her, because she's not she for the vaccines. So we had to find some common ground. She said pro-choice. That's the safest place. It's the safest place.
Because what you feel with what's going on with the different 7 out of 10 will have the vaccine, try to give the idea that there's the 3 out of 10 that are just going to be, problematic.
Yeah.
It's almost like the 2 wolves are voting to have the sheep for dinner.
Exactly.
And we
exactly
don't want a scenario like that. When, as an individual, I've got the choice whether I want it or not.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it for negligent reasons. I could probably articulate myself very well, as opposed to someone who's readily, happily going to have the vaccine. Just wanting to do the right thing, if that makes sense. So, pro-choice. I mean, I wouldn't want to deny anyone, and I don't want to force anyone not to have the vaccine. If they feel that that's their course in life, if they're vulnerable enough, then go for it. I mean, but the bottom line is I would still have concerns on how it come about, this vaccine, the length of time in which it's been brought out, and the fact that there's no accountability. There's too many things stack up that make me as an individual go, I'm pro-choice and I'd rather just not have that, if that's all right. Any other alternatives going? But it's a long battle, isn't it?
It is a long battle, and that's almost, again, in the meetings that we have, what we're trying to figure out, what people's entry points are, because, you just touched on a few points there, maybe 5 different points. What if one of those points is, for instance, pro-choice? It's like, okay, well, I believe in the vaccine. I believe that you've anti-vaxxers, so to speak. Not anti. I don't believe that, because that would have went against my point. But let's say you guys should fall in line. But I do believe, where the vaccine's concerned, for instance, you should be allowed a choice. What if that is, all the other things they want you to conform with, but pro-choice is like, you can get people to see, look, I hear what you're saying, but what is the world now if just because you feel that this might hurt you, that now I lose my freedom of choice? Switch that round a minute on something that you don't particularly like or agree with. How would you feel if my sensibilities are being, worked with, and the government are saying, but then because you think opposite, you have to fall in line with what I think. How are you going to feel? You're not going to feel, so you have to almost get them to see that mechanism and that concept. It's not easy, obviously.
Because they're triggered by the fear.
Exactly.
To the point where people who feel like that are the enemy.
Guys, I just give you that.
Well, I'm Margaret.
Okay.
Right. What we'll say is I'm Margaret, 63-year-old grandma. I'm on Facebook, so I'll link into a lot of the sites there. But ultimately, what I'd say is I'm a free spirit when it comes to this, because by being an individual, that empowers me. You can tell me to wear pink socks. It don't make sense to me, I'm not going to put pink socks on. So I do my truths. From the beginning, back from March, I had a grandchild. This is what started me on my journey. I had a grandchild that was due at the end of March the 28th. And I was told I can't be present at the birth. And then my daughter was told she can't have the baby in a certain place because the ambulance was needed. She needed to be at the hospital. Then she was told her husband couldn't be with her. For the last 4 days of March, no husband was able to be present at the birth of their baby. Even now, scans are still being done without the husband being there to present. So this really irated me. So I thought, right, all the deaths were going on in London. So I went down to Salford Royal, I'll name and shame it, Salford Royal Hospital, my hospital, and I was asking staff what's going on. And they were telling me how they were preparing for the pandemic. They told me what wards were being emptied. I spoke to the maintenance man, I spoke to the chaplain. I was asking the chaplain how busy is it in intensive care. She said everything's okay, fine and okay with the words she was using. I was taking photographs of everything going on at my hospital. And then a friend with cancer started her cancer journey, and she's all nervous because she had breast cancer. So So I started going round Oldham Hospital, Rochdale Hospital and North Manchester Hospital with a friend with cancer. So then I was going in there. I've never wore a mask throughout it. My grandchild was born in April. And so to me, it didn't make sense. Two parrots, one saying there's a killer pandemic, and the other one saying might catch it and pass it on to your grandchild. And the one that's killer pandemic wasn't true. I have got video footage. I'm very careful with this because obviously it's got staff on without PPE gear on. I've been in intensive care twice of Salford Royal. Video footage, and so this is my truth, and that's fact, that's truth. Now, I've got in the family, that's why I've got to be careful with my name, I've got in the family doctors and nurses and whatever, because I'm one of 10, so there's a lot of professionals in the family.
Where do they stay with us?
Well, I've got to be very careful here because at the beginning they were talking freely to me. In March and April they were freely saying what was going on in their hospitals, and now they don't talk to me because they are being, they're in this as well, they're victims as well in this because their jobs on the line.
So what you're saying is they're professionally invested to the point where they've got to worry about their future if
Yes.
they talk anymore.
Yes, and obviously the link up, when you said about my name, by my name, simple, anybody looking up my name can then look up and probably see them. My kids aren't embarrassed with me at all because I'm going to carry on, they just think that's our mum, they're proud of me. Where I come in with this, which is really, another really biggie that came, is in 2018, I was in intensive care with my partner. And he went in on the 3rd of January. And we signed the forms. He was my partner, so his next of kin was his son. And we signed and his daughter or whatever. And we had to sign the forms because when you go on life support machines, you haven't got them indefinitely. So you sign the forms, you go in the hands of the medical professionals. If they need the machines time to be turned off, they have to get turned off. And my partner wouldn't have wanted to be on a machine. So we signed the forms, wearing PPE gear. No PPE gear at all. This is Fairfield Hospital now in, I think it's Bury direction. About 8 beds in the room, curtains all pushed back, the carousel in the middle with all the staff in. It was busy because everybody's got at least 2 or 3 machines attached to them. My partner was sedated on a heart machine, a lung machine, and they stabilised those 2 and eventually put them onto a kidney machine. And then he deteriorated overnight. He told us there's no point bringing him round now. Time to turn the machines off. The machines were turned off at 10:20 on the 5th of January 2018 and he died 10:47. On his death certificate, it's coronavirus. Now, they didn't know what virus was inside. They were detecting the virus so they could treat it. They were on the search for the virus. Now, the reason he died, in theory, wasn't the virus. It was the fact that in 2017, he was diagnosed with bowel cancer. He'd been at Manchester Christie's. He'd gone through chemo for bowel cancer. He rang the bell on the October. He finished his treatment. He went back in November and they said, you're all clear now. You're no longer a patient of ours. You've got the all clear. And then he caught a cold, which is the coronavirus. He caught a cold. He struggled with his breathing. On the 3rd of January, he went in 2018. And because they didn't locate what the virus was, the machines had done too much damage and there wasn't any point in bringing him round. I was asking daft questions like how long you're on the machines for, all these daft questions and what happens. They were explaining it all to me. Other people had visitors. And we just sat there, I held his hand, I stroked his face, I sang songs to him. And he died of a contagious disease. And that was 2018. So now we come to 2020, and I'm looking at this, my grandchild's due, and I'm looking at this, hearing about this contagious disease, because it's called COVID-19, isn't it? COVID-19 or whatever. That changed to coronavirus at the end of April. And I'll tell you why. because the doctors and nurses inside the hospitals were realising that ventilators, because this is my inside information, the ventilators were doing more harm than good. They presumed everybody had this unknown COVID. They were shoving on ventilators because that's what Italy did. That's what we were told to do. And then they started recognising, now I know this from a radiologist, I've got to be careful with her, because it gives links to names, and she was saying the viruses they were recognising were viruses that we're used to recognising. So then they started doing different treatments, bringing in, I don't know, the medication, this works for the malaria, hydrocortisone, this works, or that works, or this works. And they started doing all that because they were recognising the viruses, hence the death number dropped, because the actual ventilator was actually killing more than saving. And that was recognised, because doctors were, I'm not blaming any doctors, no medical staff here now in March and April, because just like me, just like the whole blooming world, we honestly expected a pandemic. They've never had pandemic.
We were told 500,000 deaths.
Well, we were told it changed to coronavirus. That's when I thought, there's my ring, that is ashes, that's my partner's ashes. That's what they do with things now. So that's, I'm talking his truth. That's what he died of. Now, on top of that, as we progressed on this journey, they're lying about coronavirus. Now the swab test is not even fit for purpose. It doesn't test for a coronavirus. Well, it does in theory, because a coronavirus is a cough and cold. So in theory, it is testing for a cough and cold symptoms.
Has it been sufficiently isolated?
No, they've never isolated COVID. And as a result of not isolating COVID, the deaths can be coronavirus, which is everything from a cough and cold. So this year, the statistics show a reduction in heart attacks, a reduction in cancer, a reduction in Alzheimer's, a reduction in this.
So it's fudging the numbers.
It's fudging the numbers. It's stealing off all the data in order to keep the figures bumped up. Then we stopped. The deaths weren't high enough. So lockdown ended, the deaths weren't high enough. So then people went into, the hospital then had security on them. So now I can't walk freely into Salford Royal freely anymore. I can't really walk into Salford Royal. I have to sort of pretend I'm going to visit somebody or pretend I'm doing something. I can't take photographs freely. So, you know, and that's not just Salford Royal, it's what's happened to hospitals now. But courtesy of my friend with cancer, I was her carer going with her. So I've got photographs of the other hospitals on her journey without a mask on. So I've gone through all this, then thinking now what they're doing is they've ramped up the figures. And it's so obvious whichever area they want to target. So Leicester got targeted because Leicester, there's people carrying on with their businesses. So let's target a certain race of people, say. And you know what? They dared to have a funeral. And over 200 people went to the funeral. They had that funeral. 200 people went. But in order to stop the fine with the imam, he went for a test. No symptoms, but then you can test positive without any symptoms.
So you can never win. They can always put the fear out.
So what happened is a track and trace. Now this is where I step into the next. I step into so many other things. I know 2 people with a job. You've got to be careful here. I was basically asked out on a date as a single person at a dating site, asked out on a date. Ian from Manchester lives in a 10th floor block of flats. He wanted to take me for a meal to Wetherspoons in Bolton. Free meal, free drinks. I just had to be his companion because when we go into Wetherspoons in Bolton, we were to observe people in their bubbles. We were to chat to people to find out whether they'd signed in. I was to go to the ladies' toilets and check that the hand sanitisers and all the usual things that check. I was to check all that out. He was filling in a form. That's his new job. His job used to be a secret shopper. It's now a secret COVID compliance tester. So I said to him, Ian from Manchester, you know my name's Margaret. You know my mobile number. I can't have anything to do with you. And he said, well, I said, I can't. I said, I'm going to hospitals on a regular basis, every single week with a friend with cancer. I said, I can't catch this virus and put my support for my friend with cancer at risk. And also, I'm not going to help you close that Wetherspoons in Bolton down. Those people lose their jobs. The cleaners, the bar staff, the cooks, they all lose their jobs. So that rang alarm bells to me, because you never know who's going to be an Ian from Manchester and where they're going to go next. Then somebody close got a job, and this is where I've got to be really careful. A job for the government, for the Office of National Statistics. And this job is going into people's houses, swabbing them for 6 consecutive weeks. They don't do the swab. They say it was your house. They bring the kits. They're all covered in protective gear. They give the kit to you, you swab yourself. They take that information back. They ask you all your contact details. You give them all your contact details, and then they return them off to track and trace. You then, the following week, they'll be back at your house doing the same again, all your contact details for another week. They do that for 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, it's once a month for 10 months. It's a year's contract for the Office of National Statistics. It's swabbing you once a week for 6 weeks. Even if you're positive, it doesn't matter. Once a week for 6 weeks, because we're checking to see how the virus, when you get it, how long it lasts in your system, and so on. So they're doing that for 6 weeks and then once a month. Now you're wondering why now they get paid for all your contacts that are passed on to track and trace. And that's their job, and it's lucrative, and it's a very nice job. And I wasn't going to tell this person, don't have it, because it's a fantastic job to have. Yeah, it's a good job to have.
No, but you can see how these jobs are working away against
there
people.
will be there's months up. Meanwhile, you won't tell anybody that you're doing it, because you're going to say, if you knew my surname, that you met me, and then I'm being track and trace because of you. I'm going to refuse. Now this goes on to track and trace here now. Track and trace have to get the results back within 7 days. They have to have a positive or a negative. An inconclusive needs more follow-up. So track and trace then have their mission to do, and there's been loads of faults with there. So there's been loads of people who've had a positive put down rather than a negative because they've refused to have it, or they've not. Now that works in people getting letters saying, I've tested positive, I've never whatever. Now, when you get a phone call from Track and Trace, they will tell you, we've got your details, you've been in contact with somebody. If you say to them, who? That's confidentiality. So you'll never know it's me. You'll know it's you. You don't know, so you can't track it out. And then you say, I'm not going. Well, then your name's on the system. You've not gone, so it's going to end up as positive. So I can't tell you how much of that is happening. That to me, that was common sense. That is going to inflate the figures. And then they're moving in. We need to get hold of this, folks. We need to get hold of this, folks. We need to find out where the virus is. We need to stop it before the spread. Now you know about the R rate, don't you? Well, here I will tell you, I'm a maths teacher. Not working now, but that's my profession, maths. So I suddenly hear about this R rate. This one person spreads it to 3. Well, how do they know that? Well, one person spreads it to 1, and those 3 or whatever. How do they know this? How do they produce a graph like this? So we've got 67 million people living in the UK, 40,000 deaths. How do they track? How do they know? So unless they can put the death figures in some sort of order, stealing a few deaths here and there like we started off, but how can they put the track and trace? How can they put the swab test in order? Unless they trace 67 million people, all have a swab test today, and then a week later,
You'd have to be so
a
regular.
swab test again, and we do that for a month because just like chickenpox, measles, whatever, by the time we have our spots, we were contagious
You'd have to
last
be able
week.
to isolate the point you got it. So it couldn't have too much of a gap in between testing.
If I've
otherwise
got
you're
it
never gonna
now,
know.
I'm not going to show my symptoms, maybe, until next week. So unless you check somebody every single week, but not just somebody, 67 million all at once. So you've got the testing capacity to get the results back of 68 million. Impossible. And then you've got people like Nigel Farage who constantly tells you there's another boat coming across with another thousands of people, whatever. Well, they're just disappearing into the community. And there's aeroplanes going off and coming back in, visiting our country. And it's the 67 million people in the country at once. So that our rate is completely unken. So I've been telling people as a maths teacher, saying that there's two towns, Noddy Town and Mickey Town. I've got stupid with the names, but this is what I'll put to them: Noddy Town and Mickey Town. Noddy Town's got 100 residents. Mickey Town's got 100 residents. Noddy Town is very proactive. Get all the swab kits in, and all 100 people are all swabbed. 60 of them are positive. 60%. So potentially they've got an R rate of 3. Yeah? Mickey Town doesn't give a, excuse the language, SHIT. Hey, couldn't care less. Free! Open your businesses, do what you want, folks. Doesn't test anyone. Mickey Town has got nobody positive. Which town would you live in, Noddy Town or Mickey Town? And I tell people, and I can see them going, so I said, well, let me make it easier for you. Noddy Town's in lockdown. All the businesses are closed. You can't go to church.
You have to further break it down from that, because that was very explanatory.
You have to close the church. They're all closed. The shops are all closed and whatever. The hospitals are just whatever because it's, they're overrun. And whatever. It's terrible in Nod. Mickey Town, they're having huge parties. Shops are all open. People are happy. They're going to church. Life is happy.
What is it that's caused it? Is this the death of common sense, or is this fear?
This is what it is. If you ask me my opinion, we all had fear at the very beginning in March. We all had fear. There's no ifs and buts about it. We had fear. We'd seen the pictures from Italy. We'd seen the pictures from China. We had fear. We didn't know what was coming. And I was literally watching what was going on at the hospitals, thinking, well, it's all down in London. It's not here yet. It's not in Manchester. It's down in London. And I didn't go through that fear. And every week I was watching my neighbours. Clap for the NHS saving lives. We stay at home to save lives. And I thought, and I kept saying to them, have you been to the hospital? It's quiet, have a walk. It's only a mile away. Because, I'm only a mile from the hospital. It's a nice walk. It's my exercise for the day. So it's only a mile away, go for a walk at the hospital. My wife's working really hard. I said, what department is she in? Because I thought next time I go, I'll ask about that department. And he said, they're building morgues. So next time I visit, what do you think we did? I went down to the hospital and I say, do you know where the morgue is, please? You tell me where the morgue is. Because I wanted a picture of the morgue. I wanted something in the album because I wanted to see what they were doing. Yeah. I never got to the morgue. I managed to see other things, but not the morgue. And at one stage, I had my family all turning on me because they were fearing for their jobs because I've got a big mouth. And I'm thinking, look, as far as I'm concerned, you're covering up mass murder. You're covering up mass murder. You're covering it. I can't, for the sake of my heart and for the sake of God, I know it sounds ridiculous, whatever, I cannot allow people to die, and I don't care about your job, it's irrelevant. To me, it's irrelevant in the big scheme of things, and really you should be speaking out. But then I knew why they weren't speaking out, because they've got so much invested in that job. And also it's a little bit like, I don't mean to sound awful, but it's a little bit like they work at the hospital and they're told that they're busy in the intensive care. So they're just making the sandwiches or doing the tea or mopping the floor, but they're busy in intensive care. It's only the intensive care ones that know how busy they are. So the thing, I had courtesy of hospital because I had chest pains about a month ago, and I went into A&E. There was 3 staff to every one of us.
Evening, guys. We're early in the evening. Yeah, so shout out to TK Media for coming along, and shout out to those who actually came. The best thing about it was the family that came along, and the little girl, and Laura, I think her name is. She's a vax victim, so she had a vested interest in being out there and supporting the cause. Again, there was only a few amounts of us, but that's how it starts. Just speaking to these guys here who, are part anti-vax, part vaxxers, I kind of learned something today. Don't assume. There was a gentleman that came over with a mask on, and the three of us assumed that he was coming over and he was a vax, you know, pro-vaxxer. He was coming to tell us off, It turned out that he was more radical than the rest of us. He started talking about bombing up the government and everything. I'm like, so I was trying to establish why you had a mask on. And again, he had a different entry point as to why he had a mask on. And that's the whole point of doing it locally. You don't really know until you actually sit down with people and speak to them why. Like, because no one's actually, everyone's just hearing one narrative. And, you know, both angles, being in town and, you know, protesting and getting around, getting the majority together is a good thing, you know. We also need to do it locally, because imagine this, and you'll see it back on the video. Some of us were posting stuff through the letterboxes. You've seen some of us speaking to people. Imagine if the protocol was to go out there, knock on a door, and if people are willing to speak, just have a 5-minute conversation. 5-minute conversation. We've all got the same message. We've all got the same entry point. We're all sticking to the same subject, you know, almost opening, bringing people into the conversation at the same conversation point. So now imagine we're all speaking at that same entry point about the same thing in that specific community. Then we all go. They can now speak to each other walking down. Oh, what were they speaking to you about? Now they can now have a conversation about the same thing. They can have a conversation about the same thing, that neighborhood. So, and again, that either opens them up to the conversation, it shuts them down, but they're having more of a conversation about it. There's leaflets, we gave out leaflets. They can discuss what's on the leaflet, you know. One man was pro-vax, but he was willing to have a conversation about it. So the bigger conversation is, oh, they just think we're conspiracy theorists and they just think we're, you know, against the people and we're trying to kill people. No, when I went over to the car, he wasn't like this. You know, he wasn't like that. He was cool, he was calm, he was ready to speak to us, he was ready to have a conversation. So part of do it locally is that we want to just have a conversation with normal people, you know, see where they're at, see where the entry points are, see whether, you know, me and Red Pill Phill?
Yeah.
We was talking about, you know, the compartmentalization and the different mentalities, i.e. if you've got a mask on, do you believe the narrative? Do you not believe the narrative? If you've not got a mask on, do you believe the narrative or do you not believe the narrative? You know, do you just believe the lockdowns? Do you believe about 5G? Do you believe about Save About Our Children? I do believe that, but I don't believe, like, there's many different, you know, there's many different levels as to what people actually believe. And again, if we don't sit down and have that conversation, which I feel, or maybe being, you know, having the 2,000 people in the city centre, maybe it can be adapted, whereby at points we stop and we stand and we give out leaflets and we speak to people. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's not necessarily that doing it locally is better than this, from my perspective, in terms of how we get to people. But maybe it's just that. 2,000-3,000 people are going to be there tomorrow. You know, is there a point where we stop, we speak to people, and we just get that conversation, we get that normal conversation? I just had a conversation with the police. They were a little bit defensive, but I managed to calm them down because I knew, you know, I almost assumed that they would be a defensive. And it got to the point in the conversation where they were like, look, you understand that we can't speak on it. I said, yeah, I get it. So I questioned them more. Is that police policy or is that just you? Because we've had conversations with police and some of them have actually spoke further than you sound like you're willing to. So again, it's not having the assumption that because we've seen the police in Trafalgar Square going crazy, and we've seen the police in our communities going crazy about stuff, and we have this notion about them. If we have the chance to speak and get on a human level, can we talk about it? Are we able to make aware, I'm not going to say change, but are we able to make aware people's perceptions that only have one narrative about the situation? Are we able to make people aware about that? I believe we are, if we follow what do it locally and the protocols and the the almost way we're going to go about engaging with people. I believe we can do that, and it's going to be frequent. We're going to be doing it week to week. I'm going to be doing a lot more linking with people and getting the word out there. So week by week, you're going to see more people doing it. Tomorrow, I will be there speaking to the people more about it. I'm going to link people to TK's page, so they're able to see what we've been doing today, and get the concept of what that is. How's it going?
I was just looking for you. Sorry.
This is another fellow activist. Whilst the numbers were quite low today, I felt nourished. I felt nourished that we've actually going and speaking to people and seeing what the narrative, getting a feel for the climate. And I was pleasantly surprised. We probably spoke to about 15 people. We posted letters for a few letterboxes. But next time round, I'll leave you with this. The 3,000 people that will be showing up tomorrow. Imagine going in an area, allocating a door, because we can then travel, we can cover an area even faster if we do that. Speaking to the people, letting them know why we're here, giving them alternative information, and having a normal conversation. That's what it's about. Having a normal conversation and making them aware of the grander scheme of where we're at. That's what it's about. So tune in, do it locally. Rio Hanley on Facebook. Tune in, and I can keep you informed. Next week we're going to do it in another area. And keep with us. We got to be consistent, guys. This protesting one day, and then in 2 months' time, we're gonna have another protest at the magnitude that they've been at, is no good, guys. We have to have some type of consistency. You know why? Because tomorrow, the government are gonna move their markers 3-4 times. Guess what we're doing? We're playing catch up. That's just one day. Forget 30 more days we've got of that. We've got one day of that, whereby the government moved 4 markers. We have to catch up. So we're so behind, it has to be consistent. It has to be. So think of it as this. Depending on where you think the world is going, to if you're not active in the movement, whether you're active online or offline, protests or not, get active. Because if in 6 months you don't want to be turning around and regretting and saying to yourself, shit, if only I did, if only. You don't want to be the if only person. Don't be the if only person. Be the, I'm going to get out there and ensure that what I feel is going to happen may not happen if I take responsibility and do something about it. So that's where I'll leave it. Appreciate TK Media. Grassroots. We are the new media. We are the new mainstream media. We're making it mainstream. Without us, people don't know what's going on. People don't know what's going on. So without the TK medias, without the cameras, These right now are our blessings, because without these, all we've got is BBC, ITV, Fox News, all these places. That's all we've got, and we need alternative media. So thank God that we have camera phones, and thank God for TK Media. He takes out his time, coming out in the cold. He is shivering, but he's out here giving the people alternative information, and that's what it's about.
Cheers, man.
Blessings.